Well, hello, sports fans. It's Larry Eater, and you're having a cup of Joe with Larry's Epilogue. This is for Athletic Chat 5. I called it 6, but I can't count. I went to Catholic schools, and I didn't learn base numbers. So anyway, Athletic Chat 5, Epilogue. I'm drinking coffee from my dear father's Keurig machine that he won up at a casino. My father was a rather prolific gambler. The thing is, the man would win. And, not $100. He would win a lot of money. And when he was alive, I was taking him up. There were months when I would take him up once a week. And it was a nice drive, 2 hours from the Bay Area. And we would go up to Cache Creek and see a friend of his, Tom Walsh, who passed away last year, hang out with him, and then go gamble for a while. And I would write my RunBlogRun stories in the sports bar in the Cache Creek and enjoy their clam chowder. But I've digressed. But hey, that's what I do. Okay, so Epilogue. We chatted with Stuart Weir. And just so you know, last Friday, got some time with Lance Brauman, the famous sprint coach, one of my favorite people. A lot of fun to talk to. He coaches Noah Lyles and Shawnee Miller-Weibo, among 24 others. And we'll have him up shortly. Yeah, that's with our socialing the distance. I always call it socialing the distance. And that's our second bit of Zoom programming. And this is the Athletics Chat, where weekly, Stuart Wire and I try to solve all the world's problems. He's in Oxford, England. And I'm in the United States. And right now I'm in San Jose, California. And in a socially distanced sheltered in place situation. At my parents' house, you can hear the little fountain dripping in the backyard, and there's hummingbirds flying around me right now and lizards zipping around the yard. So it's kind of idyllic. I think I've got my own little piazza in San Jose. But okay, so topics today. Stuart Wire and I solved a lot of the world's problems. And I did something unusual, is that I gave him the topics like 5 minutes before the meeting, which next week I'm going to try to do 2 weeks. But the first thing was the Impossible Games, which happened on June 11th in Oslo, the famous Bislett Games. We applauded them for doing the event, even with nobody in the stands, but you can't right now in the socially distancing world. There was the Maury Plant 2,000 meter, where our friends, the Ingebrigtsens, ran 450.8, 453 and 456, which is our friend Jakob. That was a 350 mile, dropping another 60 laps. So yeah, it's serious running. Running a 2K like that is pretty amazing. They went against the Kenyan team, and they who had rain and wind, and their top athlete went, I think, 5:03, 5:08, 5:13. And what Stuart brought up was we really needed a handicap race at the old days, what they used to do in the 19th century in the U.S. and the UK. And what we should have done is let the Kenyans run 2,700 meters and have the Norwegians run 3,000. So let's do some handicapped races in the future, okay? Keep it fun. And that's where you do everything. So Lon Myers, who was a famous American sprinter, professional runner at the end of the 19th century, he would do things like, he's going to run 400 meters, and somebody would run 372, and someone would run 350, and someone would run 310, and someone would run 200 meters, and he would try to catch him, and people loved it. And I think it's entertaining, but it's also safety. Let's stay with that. The next topic we talked about, and I kind of got off on, media travel. Media travel, can you even do it now? It's pretty difficult. If I want to go to Europe and see a meet, I got to sit in London for 2 weeks in a hotel. And, I can only watch, I love BBC, and I love David Attenborough, and if I could watch him 24 hours a day, I would be a lucky person. But me in a hotel for 2 weeks, and the bar's probably not even open, and, I can only write so many stories and do so many Zoom conferences, but yeah, not happening. COVID-19 in the UK, they're taking it very seriously. They're starting to let things up, but there's issues. 46,000 people have died in the U.S. 117,000 people have died, and 46% of Americans believe that this has something to do with vaccinations, and others, 26% believe that Elvis is alive, and another 31% believe that aliens brought us COVID. I'm not sure about the aliens, but I know that COVID's real. And yes, I do know people who have had COVID-19 and have recovered. I do not know anybody, thank God, who has passed away. I've heard of people who have. And I'm the poster group for it, with someone who's had heart surgery and who's had cancer surgery. When I go out, even on my walks, I take my mask with me. And yes, I've driven to the coast and found takeout food, and I keep the mask on. And in California, most little restaurants say no mask, no service, which is fantastic. And even though people, they may not think they're going to get it, but you could give it to somebody else. And that's the other sad thing. What I can tell you about California right now is that people are socially distancing, and that the traffic is, I've never seen this side of traffic anywhere. We were in San Francisco yesterday, and there was no one out. There were people, when we went last week to Santa Cruz and Half Moon Bay, there were people on the beaches, but people seem to be staying in their own little groups. And we found a little beach where we could be by ourselves and put a mask on and just kind of enjoy the sea breeze. So please be careful. The numbers are going up in California again. The numbers have tripled in Wisconsin, and so my friends in Wisconsin I'm very concerned about. So yes, it's real, and I just don't want, there's a lot of people getting sick from it, and it's the people who've recovered from it are having a rough time too. This is not a joke, and if you want to say, well, it's the same as the flu, it's not. 22,000 people died from the flu in 2019. That's CDC numbers, okay? 34,000 are expected to die in 2020. 34,000, 117,000, and what we expect by August is somewhere north of 150,000 in the U.S. And if people are stupid, it's going to be more. And this is not the second wave. This is still the first wave. This is real, even though you can't touch it, bite it, and sit. It's not a communist plot. It's not a plot for either party. Let's just use our brains and stop the bullshit. This is something you need to be careful about. That's all I ask. And if you don't think you're going to get it, just know you could give it to someone else, and you'd feel terrible about doing that, okay? So Larry's going to get off his little high horse. Doping issues. Okay, doping issues, yes. Ms. El Nasir, the Bahrainian 400-meter runner, I call bullshit. 3 tests I've heard of people missing. 4 tests I just find, what are you doing? Trying to avoid testing? Now, we don't know how many other tests that she's getting, but I do know that there have been times when an athlete misses 1, 2, or 3 tests, and they've but also had 19 other tests. It's about being organized. And I talked to Coach Lance Brauman last week and asked him about it. He said, look, athletes have to be organized. And that's part of your modern life and the big bucks you make sometimes. So just stay organized, okay? I don't want to have to write about you missing 3 tests or 4 tests. And I'll go bullshit if you miss 4 tests. Anyway, does practice make perfect in the relays? In the UK, they believe this. Look, we may not be as fast as the Kenyans or the Jamaicans. We may not be as fast as the Americans. But you know what? If we practice and we can take 1/10 of a second off each leg, we can be in the medal hunt. Chinese think that too, but the Chinese want to win. The Japanese think that too, but a funny thing, in Doha at the relay conference where the Japanese won a medal, someone mistranslated what one of the Japanese relay guys said. He said, we can't wait to see you all in Tokyo. He was really talking about we can't wait to kick your ass in Tokyo. So giving them another year. You think those relay teams are practicing? They sure are. And, it depends. I just remember the French relay team back in 1992 broke Santa Monica Track Club's world record. And these kids were all good athletes. They were 10.08 to 10.10. The difference was They had trained with each other since they were 16. They were in their early 20s. They practiced relays once a week. And they were smooth. Did I say that? Smooth. I like that. Okay. Hey, sports fans, boy, there was a bleep there. Sorry about that. Sometimes I really digress. I think aliens were responsible, maybe tralfamadorians. If you don't know what tralfamador is, then you haven't read Kurt Vonnegut. And here's a digression. Kurt Vonnegut can change your life. Read Slaughterhouse-Five, God Bless You, Mr. Rosewater, Mother Night, I guess. Of course, it's a Goethe quote, okay? And welcome to the Monkey House, all right? That's my literary suggestions for today. Oh my gosh, I think there's a creature. Oh, it's a woodpecker. That's kind of cool. Anyway, I love little creatures. So what was I talking? Oh, yeah, okay, let me just get back to my little list of things here. Larry was talking about how does UK deal with non-UK coaches? So, I was going through some of my stories. I keep things in archive, and I found a story from last year about an American coach who was being chastised by a British writer who should have known better, who had gone back years and talked about the coach spending some time incarcerated, and also that they had coached an athlete who tested positive, and that they were coaching British athletes. And, do your homework. Before you do things like that, just do your homework. In 2015, I was sitting in Birmingham, England for the Diamond League meet. And there were 36 questions to Mo Farah. And 34 of them were about doping. And that Panorama thing had come out. And, there was things in there that obviously should have been discussed, but they really did a poor journalistic job with it. And Mo was in a place where he felt he needed to protect himself. And I didn't ask him a drug question. I asked him about the 1,500 and the 3,000. He looked at me and he smiled and he goes, "You're not asking a doping question." I said, "No, this is a press conference for your meet." And Cathal Dennehy followed me right afterwards. And Cathal's a tough writer, but Cathal was also there to write about, hopefully, Mo racing the next day. Mo didn't show up in the 1,500. If I had been advising him, I would have told him he should have run the first 800 and walked off the track and said, "Look, I'm exhausted. This shit just emotionally buys me out." And he would have had all of England, all of the UK supporting him. But I'm not one of those PR agencies is making $250,000 to tell people what to do. But if you want to, want me to do that, you can pay me much less, and I'll tell you how not to be stupid. Anyway, let's get back to it. Yeah, the British press sometimes gets real hard on about things, and I love the individual writers, but sometimes there's a feeding frenzy. And one of their feeding frenzies is foreign coaches. And there's good coaches all over the place. There's some fine coaches in the UK, and some of them have not gotten the credit due. And I think that's a travesty. And there's a level of competitiveness. Yes, there is in the U.S. too. Don't get me wrong. You see it everywhere. But it should be for what's best for the athlete, Sometimes, in the U.S., sometimes the kids change coaches too often. In the UK, sometimes they don't change them at all. And sometimes you need a happy medium. And where does the coach and advisor thing go to? That's always something that I find interesting. My college coach became my advisor after I finished college, and I ran for another 4 or 5 years. And I kept in touch with him and continued to run well. But he had taught me everything he needed to teach me, and we just continued to communicate. And that's what it's about. I remember Derek Clayton, who was my boss. He was the world record holder in the marathon. And he told me his only regret was that he would have liked to he thought Franz Stompel would have been a good coach for him. And I've heard other guys say that too. I heard that Sir Roger Bannister had expressed regret not having a coach. And sometimes you just need someone to tell you that you're buying your own bullshit. And, my coach is really good. He just looked in my eyes and said, "Yep, easy day. and it worked, and you just need someone to talk you through that. And you can call it coach, you can call it advisor, you can call it friend, but I think two is better than one in most of those cases. So that's me on the high coaches are really a good thing. And always enjoy talking with Stuart. I learn something new every time. And the final thing that we didn't get to chat about was 2021, where we think that's going. And I applaud VSLET for doing what it did. I think the challenges right now are how do we stay safe and how do we grow the sport? And Richard Perlman, who is Rich Perlman, who is a fine journalist in LA and who has a wonderful site, got his hands on a large document from World Athletics about their budgets in 2017 and 18, and how much money they lost, and where things are going in the future. And right now, they need more sponsors. And athletics is something that people can do in the privacy of their own backyard, as well as, but it's more fun when you've got a bunch of people around. But right now, we're in a strange world. This is not the Black Plague, but it could get worse, much worse. And socially distancing, wearing a mask, watching who you're around, being careful, staying in small groups, exercising, getting in the sun, getting a little vitamin D, not too much, 15 to 30 minutes a day, doing things for your mental health, eat well, okay? I have to eat 85% veggies because I just ate too much crap earlier in my life. I enjoy it, so I make lentils and carrots and aubergine, eggplant, and all those kind of fun things. So think about those things. Think about being kind to your fellow man or woman. Think about Black Lives Matter. They have a huge point right now, and so many of our athletes are African American in this sport. That's one of the cool things about track and field. There's an athlete from Brown University, and Brown, just so you know, is bringing back men's track and field. Thank you, Brown University, and thank you to the president at Brown for writing so eloquently about it. It's a learning experience, and that when a president of a university expresses they're able to do that, I really have to applaud that. But there was a Brown athlete, a Caucasian young man, who said, look, he said he was in a white neighborhood, went to a white school. First place he got to be around Black athletes was on his track team. And I think that's really cool. I think of, I went to DeSmet in St. Louis, and I got to go to school with Vincent and Victor Rogers, who were dear friends from grade school at St. Blaise. They were the only African-American kids in the school. And they dealt with a lot of rednecks. And then at DeSmet, we had this kid, Perez Maxwell. Perez was a quarter miler. And I thought Perez was the coolest guy in the world because he could put his pick in his afro, and he could run the quarter in about 52 seconds, and that pick would not move at the end. And I just looked at him and said, how do you do that? And Perez would just look at me and say, you're out of your mind. Well, anyway, it was a learning experience. And I think of those moments fondly, almost 50 years later. We learn a lot of lessons in sports, and one of them is how to get along with other people, and that people essentially are the same. We have different cultural experiences sometimes. And in this country, we have a huge legacy with slavery and racism. And it's something that we try not to think about, but unfortunately we have to, because some of our fellow Americans deal with it every day. So take a moment and consider the plight of your fellow Americans, and think about them, pray about them, and try to make an effort. Your little efforts make a huge amount of sense. So this is Larry on his soapbox. Exercise daily, eat well, get a little sun, hug the family members you can, call the ones you can't, laugh, find something on Netflix, read a good book. Vonnegut is really good. And read something in paper. There's a paradigm changing thing. Your brain works differently. Sit in your backyard and just have a little time. Okay? This is Larry Eater signing off. And thanks to Mike Deering for putting up with me. And last week, Adam Johnson Eater had to do it too for 2 recordings. But Adam and Mike, they came up with these ideas and they've been pushing me to do this stuff. And I love doing it. I love talking, as you can tell. But I love it when it's directed at helping you guys, our readers, men and women, young people, old people, crazy people, fun people. Everybody's fun. So just have a good day and watch our podcast, okay? And support our sponsors. Brooks is out there doing a lot of stuff for us, and so is our friends at Nike. Talk to you soon. Take care.